here with Demetra. She's got she's in Berlin for Best Unproduced Script, one of the nominations for a script called The Wonderfull. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you
welcome.
so much.
Lovely to meet you. So please tell us the background. Well, no, actually, before we get on to that, can you tell us something about you? What's your background?
About me, my background is actually in Shakespeare and Shakespeare studies.
Because I believe you're from Northeast America.
You are right. I'm actually from a little bit north of Boston, where I live now. I was born in the Boston area, grew up in that area.
I love Boston, I've been there.
It's a nice little city.
It's really
a very nice little city. So my background is actually more in the theater, where I spent a couple of decades as a Shakespearean dramaturg and
a dramaturg?
You mean a dramaturge?
A dramaturg? No, I haven't heard it.
The Brits pronounce it differently than the Yanks.
Right, as we do with most things. Aluminum.
You
tomato.
Mean aluminium?
Aluminium, yeah.
Tomato.
Tomato. I love hearing Americans trying to say aluminium because it's like
aluminium.
A real tongue. Yeah, but some of them it's a real tongue twister. Like, what's that? You know.
Aluminium.
Aluminium. Yeah. So, okay.
So I'm actually a relative newcomer to film.
Yeah.
This is my first feature-length screenplay. I have a couple of other little things that I wouldn't dare to show anybody, but this is the first one that I've developed to conclusion and to the point that I would feel that it's showable.
And it's based on a?
It is based on the life of an actual Catholic saint who lived during the Middle Ages, a real person, Saint Christina Mirabilis, aka Saint Christina the Wonderfull, born in 1151.
The Wonderfull, okay, yeah.
Yeah, died 1225. She was 74 when she.
So that's quite an age to live to, even then.
It was
incredible.
Methuselah. It was Methuselah for the time. She was very old, and a few years after she died, her hagiography was written by a priest called Thomas of Cantimpré.
We should point out that is a biography, is it not? When are we just talking?
Yes.
Okay.
A hagiography or hagiography is a biography of a saint. And this is an actual saint in the Catholic canon, very obscure one, and one of the most fascinating. And she was venerated in her own time and practically unknown today.
So how did you know of her? There's a connection obviously here.
Yeah, there is a connection. A friend of mine was doing some research on tree-sitting saints. And I'm not Catholic, and I really am not an expert in Catholic saints or the litany, but he was doing research for something else on this category of saints. There is apparently a whole category of saints. These guys, because most of them are guys, and they, Saint Simeon Stylites probably being the most famous, and they climb a tree or go up a tower, and then they stay there for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years.
Yes, I've heard. This is actually real, isn't it?
These people actually did that to be closer to God, and I don't know what. But in this whole category of guys, there is one female tree-sitting saint, and he turned me on to her. He kind of found her through that. He said, "You've got to check this out. You won't believe this woman. You won't believe what she does." And if you actually go and read her hagiography, how can you not be fascinated? This woman, she's a 12th century Wonder Woman. She's the 12th century female superhero. She has saintly superpowers. She has superpowers which any Marvel action movie would put in their superhero today. She can fly. She can fly. She's bodily indestructible.
So saints are associated with miracles, are they not?
Yes,
so
they
what
are
was her
indeed.
miracles that were allegedly witnessed?
Well, she had a lot of miracles, and this was one of the problems that I had when I started working with the source material, because her source material is fascinating, but it's bizarre, and it's very hard to decipher. So there's it's hard to glean a narrative thread or any sort of moral. I guess if this priest wrote this trying to impart some sort of moral lesson, because the lives of saints are supposed to teach the rest of us. And her hagiography reads as this bizarre string of miracles. She did this miracle, and she did that miracle, and she did that miracle, and she did this miracle, and this miracle, and you could be overwhelmed with her miracles. So I selected the select few, which I included in the screenplay, because there were so many. Say, for example, let's just take a little bit of Act 1. Stop me if you've heard this one before.
Please, it's so
oh no, that was a setup for a joke.
Oh, right, okay,
Stop me if you've heard this one. There are three sisters, and she is the youngest of three sisters. And as the youngest of three sisters, she does all the menial work in the house. Have you ever heard this one before? I've never heard this one before. So it kind of starts out with this trope, this fairy tale, Cinderella type of trope. And except Christina's life story begins when she dies. That's how her hagiography begins.
Right. So the beginning is her end, effectively.
Basically.
Did you like that? You can use that line.
I'll credit you. And this is actually apparently historical from the life of Christina St. Trond, aka St. Christina Mirabilis. When she was 21 years old, she suffered a massive seizure, and she died. And that's how her life story begins.
21?
21.
Right.
And she is going to be buried, so they put her in her coffin, and they have her in the church, and they are performing her funeral mass. And during her own funeral mass, she
resurrects,
revives. But not only does she come back to life, she soars out of her coffin and flies up to the rafters of the church. And would you like to know why she has soared up to the rafters of
course.
The church? Well, now that she has come back from the dead, one of her superpowers, which she has acquired, is that she can smell your sins. Everything you've ever done that's wrong.
Better not allowed to get too close to me.
She knows by the smell, and the humanity around her stinks of sin so much that she must fly away. And I believe that's basically, we're kind of at the end of Act 1 there. That's turning point 1 in the classic. It is her coming back to life.
How do you turn a biography of someone that's been dead for, I'm going to say
800 years.
And where would you start? Because you've got, you've got a biography, but you don't, everything you're writing, pretty much. I mean, I know that you've got lots of facts, alleged facts in there.
According to the Catholic Church, it all happened. It's all absolutely true.
But how, you can see where I'm going with this, can't you? How do you get inside? How do you write a script of someone that's been dead that long, even though it's based in, it's based in fact, but a lot of what you're writing, an awful lot of what you're writing, maybe 80-90% of it, is going to be dramatised by you.
Yes.
How do you even think about doing that? Because the language would have been different, I know, but I'm sure you made it much more modern.
Well, I did and I didn't. I used, I think, 4 different translations. Of course, the original is in Latin. I used several translations, one of which is actually an early modern translation. So the script is actually a mix of vernacular, modern day vernacular. However, some of the dialogue and some of it I used, if I took direct quotations of things that she said or other people said, some of them come out of the early modern translation. So a bit of it sounds a little bit Shakespearean. Did I mention my background?
Yeah. I'm stopping you because I've heard this one before.
But how did I go about writing it?
It was a very difficult subject matter. I mean, you must have had lots of options of other stories to tell.
Yes. This is how I personally approached it. And it's funny with this script because some people get it, some people don't get it. And a lot of people like it, and a lot of people hate it. And as I say, response to this script has been universally positive or negative. I don't get a lot of C grades. You have a different grading system.
No, I know what you mean.
A, B, C, D, E, F. I either get an A or I get a D minus or an F. I don't get a C.
Which means it's good.
Which means something is going on that people respond to either negatively or positively, but something is there. They either like or don't. But the point being...
Which means discussion, which is good.
Yes. When I approached this, and the point here is, this piece, and in case you don't know, this is the life of a Christian saint. Therefore, the framework of it is a Christian world, a Christian framework. This screenplay, whenever I submit it to someone like you or a screenplay contest that asks me for the genre, I always say it's a fantasy. This is a fantasy. That if you ask me to give you a genre. However, it has been mistaken for a faith-based piece. It has been mistaken for a religious piece. It has also been mistaken for an anti-religious piece, as religious satire, and it is neither.
It just how happens that the subject matter.
When I took the original story and looked at it, my approach was, I am not putting my spin on this. I'm not saying this is ridiculous or isn't this wonderful, hallelujah, I've come to Jesus. Neither of those things. What I said was, let's pretend everything in this story is true. We are going to take this story on its own terms, in the framework of the world in which it was written, in the framework of the moral, ethical, temporal even framework of the world in which it was created. And everything in this story is true. We are going into this world and taking it on its own terms. So if the woman is going to wake up and fly to the rafters, we're not going to say, oh, well, you know, figuratively, that means she woke up enlightened. No, we are going to take it literally. And if you don't know her story, supposedly what happened when she died, and this is Catholic world. Now, in Protestantism or later church theology, later Christian theology, you have heaven and you have hell. So if you're really good in the Protestant world, you go to heaven. And if you're not, you go to hell. And that's it. But in Catholicism, you have this place called purgatory, which is temporary hell. It's kind of like you commit a crime and you get locked up for life, or you commit a crime and you get 5 years. So purgatory...
After the 5 years, you may go to heaven still.
You definitely get to heaven. If you go to purgatory, your soul is saved. You will eventually get to heaven. So depending on...
Sounds like you're on remand or something. I don't know if you called it that. A temporary sentence.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a shorter time in the slammer, basically. So you're in hell temporarily, but you get out eventually and you get to see God and go to heaven. Now, of course, the Catholic Church being what it is, let's say God sentences you to 500 years in purgatory. Well, if people who love you pray really hard, you can get time off for that.
Sentence gets reduced.
But also, virtuous people, their prayers are supposed to be more effective. So people like nuns and monks who are pure, you can pay them and they'll pray, but we're going somewhere else. But anyway, okay. Christina, what supposedly happened with her when she died is the angels came to her, and of course she's pure of heart, so she doesn't go to hell and she doesn't go to purgatory. But they give her a tour. They give her the grand tour of hell and purgatory, so she gets to see them. And then she goes to heaven and she meets Jesus Christ. And she felt such sympathy, such compassion for the poor souls in purgatory. Now, of course, the people in hell, they're damned. They're never getting out.
Yeah.
You can't do anything for them. But the people in purgatory, she felt their pain so closely to her own self that Jesus Christ gave her the choice that if she wanted to help them, either she could stay with him in heaven or she could return to earth. And the reason that she goes back to earth and chooses to go back to earth is now she can take on the penance of
so all these poor souls
to
in
get
purgatory.
them out of purgatory faster. So as part of the gift which Jesus gives her when she comes back, is she is bodily indestructible. She feels pain, but she's bodily indestructible. Why? Because she needs to torture herself, like the souls in purgatory are being tortured, to take their punishment upon herself so that they can get out faster. So she jumps in fire, she does not burn, for example. You can cut her, she does not bleed. But she feels the pain as if she were being burned, as if she were bleeding. So my approach to this was, this is what the story is. If she dies and she goes to heaven and she meets Jesus Christ, then the woman has to die and she has to go to heaven and she has to meet Jesus Christ, who is a character in the screenplay because he's there. And I think, it's funny, I've had a lot more success with the script outside of the United States than in it. And I'm not really sure why, but I think part of it has to do with the fact that Americans don't know what to do with a film in which Jesus Christ is a major character, but it's not a Jesus flick. It's not a faith-based piece, it's not a religious.
So you think you're more chance of having it made in, say, Italy or Spain or France?
Yeah, probably.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because I always although I've been to America a lot, I've never been to New York, but I always imagine New York.
You've never been to where?
I've been to America loads.
New York?
I've never been to New York. I've been to Boston, but never New York. But I've been to America. But I always imagine that New Yorkers would be very cosmopolitan and more likely to be accepting of this kind of work.
It's funny.
Like a European model.
No, I was talking to a friend of mine. I've won, I don't know how many script writing competitions, more outside the U.S. than in. Only recently have I even touched anything in the U.S., which was very nice. But I sent to the big screenwriting competitions in New York, 2 of them, 3 of them, I don't know. And I didn't even make the first cut. I just got the nice little form rejection letter. And my friend who's here with me, she said, well, a prophet is without honor in her own country. But I actually did while I was here, I got the email 2 days ago. The script took first place in the fantasy category of the New York screenplay contest. Thank you. It's the first one. I don't know. I keep saying it's something in the water in New York. I think part of it might be Jesus Christ is in it at all. Jesus Christ is in it. And I think maybe people they just turn off. I don't know.
So is the next project a little less heavy?
No. It's not a heavy piece.
No, okay. Maybe it's the wrong way to describe it.
It's playful. It's very playful. It's a fantasy.
Okay. Is it something completely different, in the words of Monty Python?
And now for something completely different. So you're asking me what I'm working on?
A rom-com, let me guess.
No.
No, I can't imagine a rom-com.
No. I think that...
historic based, though, I guess.
Well, I have several projects kind of in the works, various levels of being in the works. One is I'm co-writing a very dark and surrealistic adaptation of Romeo and Juliet with a gentleman named John Hudson. I don't know if you know him. He's written a very interesting book called Shakespeare's Dark Lady, based on the life of Amelia Lanier. He's very involved. I'm not particularly involved in the authorship debate, but he is.
Sorry, what do you mean by the?
Whether
about
Shakespeare wrote Shakespeare.
Yeah, I'm dubious about some of it.
Right.
No, as in I'm dubious that he did. That he wrote all of them.
Oh, okay. Well, John is because my background as a stage director, etc., with Shakespeare is I don't care who wrote it. We're just putting the thing on. He's much more into interpreting the text through the lens of the writer, or how you can glean who the writer may have been.
So what does he believe?
That Amelia Lanier,
yeah,
Shakespeare's mistress, the Dark Lady, is the one who actually wrote the plays. Which actually has nothing to do with his take on Romeo and Juliet. It's fascinating.
Because Romeo and Juliet is often cited because how could he write all of this about a place he'd never visited? In fact, hadn't even been out of the country, had he?
Okay, yes, all right, fine. But I don't think he ever went to an enchanted wood outside of Athens where there were fairies either. And yet somehow...
Let's
not have this conversation. Fine. It was Marlowe. It was Queen Elizabeth. It was Bacon.
I think it was Marlowe.
It was, even though he'd been dead for 11 years. Fine. It was Amelia Monnier.
I say that because Marlowe lived near me, so...
oh, really?
Well, yeah.
Or did he get stabbed?
Canterbury. Well, no, that was in London, wasn't he? Stabbed in the arm.
Oh, okay.
But he was in Canterbury, yeah. In fact, the King's College, he attended in Canterbury. So.
You have to know this one, and everyone in the film world who doesn't care has to know this one. So, of course, Marlowe was a spy.
I'd heard this.
For Francis Walsingham, who was Queen Elizabeth's spy master.
That's right, yeah.
And Francis Walsingham, for all of his spies, each of his spies had a code number. Do you know what Francis Walsingham's code number?
Don't say it's 007.
Of course it was.
No.
Look it up.
Oh, I'll look 007.
Look it up.
Okay.
But we weren't talking about that.
No. Your next piece.
Surrealistic, dark adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. I have identified a saint who is even stranger than Christina the Wonderful. And
is that possible?
It is. And she's from Wales.
Oh, you say.
Wales beats Belgium, and I forget the name of the town. Oh, goodness. Somewhere in Wales, and I believe there is only one surviving statue of her because the Puritans went to town with Gwen. And when I tell you why, of course, you'll say the Puritans got rid of her, but I believe there is one statue of her somewhere in Wales which survives. Here's a little bit of St. Gwen's story. St. Gwen was born cursed. Why? Her name is Gwen. I'm going to get this wrong. I don't speak Welsh. Traer Brown.
Ask Ray. I think he speaks Welsh.
Okay, we'll ask him. It means Gwen, 3 breasts.
Oh. which is.
She was born with 3 breasts. So she's a monster. She is cursed. Obviously, God has put a curse on this. She's ostracized, all this. But guess what happens when she marries? And she bears triplets.
Oh.
You see, it wasn't a curse. It was a blessing because she has 3 of them. And so somewhere in Wales, there is a statue to her hanging out in all of her 3-breasted glory with her 3 little children. And like St. Christina, this is not the strangest of her miracles. She apparently was somewhere along the line abducted by pirates. And she escapes back across the English Channel by walking on water. Well, that's what I do.
Brilliant.
She's a good candidate for the next one. So is it any more normal? Is that what you're asking me? No. My model, kind of where my head was when writing The Wonderfull, was in Jodorowsky's Holy Mountain.
You're going above me now.
It's a strange film. Jodorowsky's Holy Mountain, 1972 or 74. It was the most expensive movie ever made in Mexico at that time. $750,000, which would be a multi-million. I believe it was it George Harrison funded it partly?
Oh, Handmade Films. He actually funded Life of Brian as well. Did you know that?
Oh no, I did not know that.
Yeah, no, everyone turned him down. Everyone turned Monty Python down.
Because they're dumb.
Well, it was to do with the subject matter, I think.
Just like Christina the Wonderfull.
And George Harrison funded it. And
God bless
the rest
his
is
soul.
history.
I'm sure when George died, he
My
didn't go to
sweet
hell
Lord,
or
sorry I had to say
purgatory.
that.
He went right up to, very abstract and unconventional is the way I would describe it. But that was my approach stylistically with, I mentioned I have a Shakespeare background. I am not comparing myself to Shakespeare or even Ben Jonson, but you cannot learn at the knee of the man without picking up a few things. So stylistically, I would say I marry film convention with conventions of Elizabethan theater, and those are melded together in kind of a way that I don't believe anyone has done before. But Jodorowsky certainly breaks the fourth wall in Holy Mountain, adds an extra, not meta, what is the word? Adds an extra layer of communication and connection to the audience by directly connecting the world out there with the world in here, which Shakespeare, of course, did, and I do also.
Brilliant, thank you.